200 miles off the coast of Florida. The water stretches in every direction. There is no road, there is no fence, there is nothing but ocean. The United States has over 95,000 miles of coastline and navigable waterways. That includes the Gulf of Mexico, the Atlantic Ocean, and the Pacific Ocean. Guarding all of that water is one of the hardest jobs in the world. Smugglers know this. They move drugs, weapons, and people across the water because it is harder to watch than a highway. They use small, fast boats made of fiberglass. A basic smuggling boat costs around $50,000. It is light. It sits low in the water. It leaves almost no wake. A U.S. Coast Guard cutter. The Coast Guard cannot park one of these ships every few miles. There are not enough ships, and the ocean is too large. So the math works in the smuggler's favor. One small boat, one giant ocean. The chance of being caught on any single trip is low. Smugglers run the numbers and decide the risk is worth it. But the Coast Guard and the U.S. Navy have learned to change the math. They do not try to watch every mile of ocean at the same time. Instead, they gather intelligence. They track phone calls, study shipping patterns, and work with other countries to find out when and where a smuggling boat is likely to move. Then they send their assets, their planes, ships, and drones directly to that area. The ocean is large, but the Coast Guard does not search all of it. They search the right part of it. The first tool is the aircraft. The U.S. Navy operates a plane called the P-8 Poseidon. It is a large jet, about the size of a commercial airliner. It flies high and fast, and it carries powerful sensors. The P-8 uses radar to scan large areas of ocean. Radar works by sending out radio waves. When those waves hit an object, they bounce back. The P-8 can scan hundreds of miles of ocean in a single flight. It feeds that information back to Coast Guard ships and command centers in real time. The Coast Guard also uses its own aircraft, including helicopters and unmanned aerial vehicles. An unmanned aerial vehicle is a drone, a flying machine with no pilot inside. These drones carry cameras that detect heat. Heat cameras, called infrared cameras, can spot a boat engine in the dark because engines produce heat. Even at night, even in rough weather, a running engine glows on an infrared screen. One of the most difficult targets to find is a narco submarine. A narco submarine is a low-profile vessel built by drug traffickers. It is not a true submarine. It does not go fully underwater, but it rides so low that almost nothing shows above the surface, sometimes only a few inches. From a distance, it looks like a floating log or a patch of seaweed. Finding a narco submarine requires looking for its wake. Even a low-profile vessel pushes water as it moves. Radar and infrared cameras can pick up this faint line on the ocean surface. Waves move randomly. A boat moves with purpose. That difference is what gets it found. Once the aircraft locates the target, it reports the position to the nearest Coast Guard cutter and requests intercept. Intercept means, go cut it off. The Coast Guard cutter moves toward the last known position of the target. A cutter is fast, but it is also large and visible. A smuggling boat can see it coming from miles away, so the cutter does not go in alone. It launches an OTH boat. OTH stands for Over the Horizon. This is a small, rigid-hulled inflatable boat light, fast and hard to spot. It can reach speeds above 40 knots. A knot is a unit of speed on the water. 40 knots is about 46 miles per hour. The OTH boat carries a trained Coast Guard boarding team and moves ahead of the cutter to close the distance before the smugglers can run. The aircraft overhead keeps tracking the target and relays the position to the OTH crew. The OTH crew adjusts its heading the direction it is traveling based on that live information. The smugglers cannot see the OTH boat until it is already close. When the smugglers realize they are being pursued, they react fast. The most common move is to dump the cargo. They throw bales of drugs overboard to remove the evidence. Under maritime law, the rules that govern activity at sea, the Coast Guard needs proof of illegal cargo to make a lawful arrest. Smugglers know this. They calculate that an empty boat is harder to prosecute. The Coast Guard anticipates this. The aircraft overhead watches every object that goes into the water and marks the GPS coordinates. GPS uses satellites to record an exact location on Earth. Coast Guard recovery boats come behind and collect the floating bales. The cargo is logged as evidence. Dumping it does not make it disappear. If the smuggling boat refuses to stop, a Coast Guard helicopter moves in. The helicopter crew fires a warning shot across the bow of the vessel. The bow is the front of a boat. A warning shot is fired into the water ahead of the target, not at the boat or the people on it. It is a signal. Stop now. Most boats stop, When the vessel stops, each boat pulls alongside. The boarding team moves on to the smuggling vessel in a specific order. This is not random. The Coast Guard trains for this procedure repeatedly so that every step is controlled and safe. The first priority is the crew. The boarding team secures all people on deck. Securing means getting everyone seated, hands visible, away from any weapons or controls. The team checks the deck, the cabin, and any below-deck compartments for additional crew members or concealed items. The second priority is the vessel itself. The team checks for weapons, navigation equipment, fuel levels, and any documents that identify the boat or its origin. They look for hidden compartments. Smuggling boats are often custom-built with false floors or walls that conceal cargo. If drugs are found, the team photographs and weighs the cargo on location. Every bale is documented. Documentation means creating a written and photographic record that can be used in a court of law. The suspected crew members are transferred to the Coast Guard cutter under guard. The smuggling vessel is either towed back to port or, in some cases, sunk at sea if it is too damaged or too far from shore to tow safely. The detained individuals are brought to a U.S. port, processed by federal agents, and charged under U.S. law. Charges typically include drug trafficking, operating a vessel to evade detection, and conspiracy. These are serious federal crimes that carry long prison sentences. The Coast Guard made 220 drug seizures at sea in a single recent fiscal year. Those seizures resulted in over 27,000 pounds of cocaine removed from circulation, along with hundreds of arrests. The math has shifted. A smuggling boat costs $50,000. A single failed run with cargo dumped, boat seized, and crew arrested costs the trafficking organization far more than that. The financial loss, combined with the loss of the crew and the vessel, makes each run more expensive for the smugglers. The Coast Guard and Navy did not solve this problem by making the ocean smaller. They solved it by getting better information faster, putting the right assets in the right place, and following a strict procedure once contact is made. The tools are helicopters, fast boats, radar, drones, and trained personnel. The strategy is intelligence first, intercept second, evidence third. The result is a systematic process applied to one of the least controlled environments on Earth. The ocean has no walls. The border is real anyway.